climate action, the Chilean experience, is about one of the most important challenges in climate governance: how to translate the national targets into effective local action. Chile's framework, Chile's framework law on climate change from 2022 is an inspiring example. It requires regional and local climate action plans, positioning municipalities as central actors in the country path to carbon neutrality. We will hear from experts who have been deeply involved in this process, from designing the law to building capacities on the ground. And we will explore lessons that can be shared with Latin American and beyond. So, before giving the floor for the presentations, let me briefly introduce our panelists. First, Andrés Pica, head of the Climate Change Division at the Ministry of the Environment. Andrés has played a key role in Chile's NDC 3.0 update and in the implementation of long-term climate strategies. He will highlight how national commitments are connected to local action and capacity building. Next, Pilar Moraga, director of the Center for Climate and Resilience Research, CR2, and professor of law at the University of Chile. Pilar is one of Chile's leading experts in environmental and climate law. She will provide the context for Chile's framework law on climate change and explain the national program that strengthens capacities at the regional and local level. Then, Antonia Samur, project manager and consultant at the National Center for Disaster Preparedness, Columbia University Climate School. Antonia specializes in climate adaptation, disaster risk management, and community resilience. And finally, but very important, Karina Cabello, head of the environmental unit at the Municipality of San José de Maipo. Karina brings the perspective of a local government, sharing her experience developing a municipal climate action plan and addressing the challenge of implementing it. Together, Antonia and Karina will focus on San José de Maipo, also known as the Cajón del Maipo. Maybe some people know it because some tourism in Chile. I know this territory well, by the way. It's beautiful, complex, and has never fully defined its vocational identity. Historically, it has balanced mining, forest use for charcoal, agriculture, tourism, energy production, livestock, among others, business. Oops. Don't worry, it's just my heavy cell phone. Cajón del Maipo combines the mountains, Mediterranean climate, and fire risk of California with the snow and flash floods, alluvions, typical of northern Pakistan mountains. Although its rainfall follows a Mediterranean pattern. This mix shows the opportunities and tensions a territory faces when planning for climate resilience. The presentation will show how local governments and academia can work together to strengthen community capacities. So, with the panelists introduced, let's see and now hear from each of them. So, Pilar, maybe we can start with you. Thank you. So we have a presentation, right? We can put it, please. She will deliver a clear overview of Chile's national context and the capacity building program. And I think it's a great foundation for our discussion. So the floor is yours. I give you now the micro.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So thank you. 10 minutes, yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. It's well, yeah, that's fine. So today I will talk about how Chile's framework law on climate change, enacted in June 2022, is reshaping the country climate governance architecture. You next, please. Yeah. Okay. Our main objective is to analyze how the law redefines climate governance in Chile and to identify which institutional innovations have been introduced to overcome historical weaknesses in the formulation and implementation in climate policy. Next, please. To start, we must understand the context in which this transformation is taking place. On the international level, in 2015, Paris Agreement committed states to create a robust national frameworks for climate action. In 2016, OECD identified key deficiencies, insufficient interinstitutional coordination with policy coherence, and a lack of effective implementation mechanism. Before the adoption of the framework law, climate change policy in Chile was regulated under the Law General Environmental Bases Act, which lacked the necessary tools to guarantee coordinated and binding action on climate change. Next, please. From an academic standpoint, we adopt the definition proposed by Marco Billy. I don't know Marco Billy, but he as climate governance is a system of a process and institution designed to plan, coordinate, finance, implement, and evaluate climate action over the short, medium, and long terms. From this conceptualization, four guiding principles emerge, which are explicitly embedded in Chile's law: integration principle, anticipation principle, participation principle, and accountability principle. Next, please. Turning to the legislative architecture, presents Chile's most ambitious legal framework on climate issues to date. In general, objective is to confront climate change, transition towards a low-emission development path, and reach and maintain greenhouse gas emission neutrality by 2050. While adapting to an increasing resilience against adverse climate effects. Next. Importantly, this law introduces a multi-level governance structure which distributes responsibilities across the central government, sectoral ministries, regional governments, and municipalities. This design is underpinned by the principle of coherence enshrined in this law, which requires alignment between the various instruments of climate management and prevent contradictory or fragmented policy. Next. At the national level, the law establishes a hierarchy of instruments. We can see in this slide, the first instrument is the nationally determined contribution, NDC, and the long-term climate strategy, which set the international commitments and the 2050 neutrality horizon. The sectoral mitigation plans and sectoral adaptation plans, which allocate emission budgets and adaptation mandates to specific ministries such as energy, transport, mining, health, and agriculture. At the subnational level, the law mandates the formulation of regional climate change action plans and municipal climate change action plans, which must be consistent with the national strategy, but tailored to territorial vulnerabilities and opportunities. One of the standout innovations of the framework law is its emphasis on overcoming institutional fragmentation and establishing mechanisms for vertical and horizontal integration. Interministerial coordination is strengthened, and basin level water planning is aligned with climate instruments under climate law. Moreover, the law establishes the preventive principle embedding anticipatory governance and 2050. Horizon ensures a long-term vision that transcends the short political cycles, thereby aligning public policy with the temporal nature of climate change. Now, science and evidence in this climate act. The policy-making processes anchored in evidence and scientific rigor. The law creates a permanent scientific advisory committee on climate change to ensure independent, high-quality scientific advice to the decision-making bodies. This institutionalization of the science policy interface enhances both the legitimacy and durability of climate governance. In terms of participation and transparency, we can talk about the development of participation or in this law. Participation is placed at the core of this governance model. This law establishes citizens' involvement at all stages, from instrument design through public consultation to evaluation and review. I think Andrés will talk about this. The model draws on the principles of Escazú Agreement, guaranteeing effective access to information, meaning public consultation and public broadcast of the session of the Council of Ministers for Sustainable and Climate Change. Let's now examine what has been achieved and what remains challenging about national and local scales. In this slide, you can see the web page of Climate Law or Climate Act Observatory, where we inform about the climate law implementation. In this context, at the national scale, the CR2 evaluation indicates that while sectoral plans exist, there are significant gaps. For example, the monitoring, reporting, and verification system remain insufficiently defined, with many plans equating with MRV with mere annual monitoring rather than a complete cycle of monitoring, reporting, and verification. Also, the legal requirement to include measures down the communal level is weakly met. Many mitigation plans lack detailed measures at local level. Okay, I will finish in 1 minute. Similarly, institutional, normative, and economic barriers are often not identified. At the local level, municipal and regional plans are still in early stages, with variable technical capacity, funding shortage, and coordination issue between central ministry and local government. In short, Chile has made substantial strides in constructing architecture, but the real test lies in moving from design to implementation, particularly at the subnational level, ensuring coherence, resourcing, and institutional capacity. In this context, CR2, next, please. Next, please. Next, yeah. So in this context, we developed this consulting, excuse me. No, no, that's okay. And that's okay. Thank you. In this context, CR2 has been contributed to improve capacity and at the subnational level. You can see this slide in relation with a course and regional workshops that involve 600 officials from all over the country. In conclusion, the framework law on climate change establishes a new model of climate governance that integrates science, participation, transparency, and binding legal targets. Chile thus positions itself as a living laboratory for climate governance in Latin America. The immediate task now is to shift from normative design to effective implementation to strengthen interinstitutional coordination, secure funding, and capacity building at the regional local level, and maintain democratic legitimacy of the process. Only then will Chile be able to reach its goal of carbon neutrality and climate resilience by 2050. Thank you for your attention. On time, no?
No, thank you, Pilar. Almost on time, almost perfect, and I think it's a great framework to start this conversation. You know, so let's continue with Andrés. You also have 10 minutes. Maybe you have a presentation too? Nothing. Okay. Just try to speak closer to the microphone. Otherwise, it's difficult to hear.
Well, hi everyone. Well, it's a bit late today, but we are going to. I will to complement what Pilar was saying. I think is super important the progress that we have made due the climate change framework law, because we have put an emphasis that everyone has to be involved in climate action. There's 17 ministries that have to take action. There is all regional governments have to develop their own climate action plans, and those climate action plans have to be led by the governor, and the same goes with the mayors, and they have to lead. So with that challenge for the Ministry of Environment, that we had been the ones that had been talking about climate change for a long time, giving these responsibilities to the other ministries is a challenge as well, because it means that we need to help in order to build capacity in other institutions that were not working directly in developing climate action plan. So that puts a gap, and that's the reason why, for example, we developed this project with the readiness of the Green Climate Fund in order to produce these 600 new people that are going to be developing climate action plans in different cities. We invite all 345 municipalities to join, and we have the participation of 240 municipalities and also all the regional governments. So that is an advance. And also it's an advance to create those capacities in the sectoral ministries, because 12 ministries or 12 agencies that now have to develop their own adaptation climate action plans, and they have to develop 7 ministries that have to develop their mitigation action plans. So this is a shift in the way that environmental policy has been developed, because previously the Ministry of Environment was the one in charge of developing the policies. Now we are putting the Ministry of Mining, the Ministry of Public Works, the Ministry of Economy through the agencies of tourism and the agency that is in charge of fisheries. They have to develop these plans that have a purpose of the environment. So that puts a challenge, because they didn't have the capacity at the beginning to do this. And we were the ones that were saying, okay, your plan is not good enough. You have to improve it. So that explains in part the gaps that the work that Pilar has led identifies. Those are there, but I want to emphasize the good advance that this means, because now we have 14 institutions that have developed climate policy. So that process has been together with regular meetings. We met every month 30 public agencies in order to develop public policy related with climate change. And at the beginning, they didn't want to participate as much, because this is your law, you have to do this, why you are bothering me with this? And we have changed the culture there. And now they say, oh, I have this, we developed this study, we want to hear the comments. Maybe other ministers want to comment on the work that we have done as Ministry of Education, as Ministry of Agriculture, as Ministry of Economy, and they want to comment, and they put their input and receive the comments of the others, and they have found the value on working together to advance in climate change. So the process has their gaps, but to address climate change, we need everyone on board. And this has helped hugely in order to achieve that. And we have more climate actors now do this to this law, and we have more partners to advance in this regard. And that is an important shift. And the law as well has this vision that we have to update the system every 5 years. We have these cycles that allow us, in order to, first, we have to do an annual assessment of the implementation of every climate action plan. And also, every time that we want to update it, we have to do an evaluation. So those are the opportunities in order to address the gaps that we have and try to find the way to improve it and make it more ambitious. And also the law has these principles that are great. We have 12 principles in the law: scientific, no regression, transparency, equity, and all those principles are super hard to fulfill fully at the same time, but they are there, and those help us in order to keep going and improve the instruments over time. So I quite happy, because we have lacks, like of the 345 municipalities that they had to do their own climate action plans. Now we have about 120. So it's just a third of those, but we have 120 municipalities that are doing climate change concretely. And that's progress. And we need to go to 100%. It's super important to get there. But those actions, is important to start with what the priorities in the local communities make sense. We need climate action plans that start with simple actions that are aligned with the priorities in the communities in order to improve their quality of lives. And with that, we can then increase the ambition, because if they don't see the benefits that they're getting now, it's super hard to ask them to go for more. And that's the challenge that we are working on now. We want to help the municipalities now to improve their capacities to develop climate action projects. And that's the line of work that we are doing now as Ministry of Environment, and our new NDC puts the effort in there. We have a new subnational component in our new NDC, so that means that we have 7 commitments related to subnational action. One is the ones that are by law, that we want to have 345 municipal climate action plans. We want to have 16 regional climate action plans, but we also want to improve the capabilities in the municipalities and in the regional governments. To do that, first connecting with another component of our NDC, that is the just transition component. We want to work especially in the communities that are affected because of the use of the coal power plants that now we are in a plan to phase out. So how we make the climate action plans of these communities with a focus on just transition. So to do that, we are developing a technical assistance. We invite all the municipalities that were part of these communities in order to have this technical assistance to develop these climate action plans. Only 6 decided to join, so those 6 are getting now that assistance in order to include just transition in the way that they are developing those climate action plans. And that's one thing. As well, we want to have capacity for everyone. So in terms of finance, we created the GAFI core group, that is the group for financial and local climate action. So how we share experiences and how we facilitate to formulate climate action projects in communities. So we are meeting by microzones. So we have divided the country in 4, and we have meetings regularly and seminars and capacity building training groups in order to share experiences with municipalities, with regional governments, and also the Ministry of Finance, the Corfo, that is the like the Development Bank of Chile, and other institutions that have resources in order to help and build the capacities in municipalities to present projects that are able to change the reality and access to climate change. And as well, we need the money, but also we need capabilities in knowledge. And we want to keep working in what we started with the, how is it, diplomado? Well, with the capacity, with the training that we did with the Universidad de Chile. We want to do another stage, but now we want to move the focus in order to connect with the empowerment capacity creation in communities, and we want to develop initiatives. So we want to move from the plans of the climate action plans to develop projects that are built together between different stakeholders, academia, private sector, working together with municipalities, regional governments, and also the NGOs, in order to build initiatives that make sense for the communities and help to stream those initiatives as something that can improve their communities. So that is the new focus that we are working now, and we want to advance, as well as keep the training going in other issues related with facing better the climate change challenge. And for that, we are developing tools in order to make, we have the R-Clean platform in order to help municipalities in order to make their climate risk assessments. We have to keep improvement that of that platform in order to make it easier for everyone. And also, we are developing a tool in order to make everyone, every municipality can have their own greenhouse gas inventory, develop it according with the methodologies of the Ministry of Environment. So we can give that away. So if you want to do it your own and make it better, feel free to do that. But if you want to use this tool and have those capacity already safe to do, and put the focus in how you change your community, you can do that as well. And that's kind of the work that we are doing. And always there is new things to do. There's new challenges to face. But the team that works in this is growing, and it's a team highly motivated. And we really want to go ahead and do more change in our communities.
Brilliant presentation. Thank you very much. I think that's super interesting, sorry. Starting from macro to micro, so the NDC 3.0, sorry, to capacity buildings, and then connecting all the points with climate action. So super interesting how Chile is developing, actually, how it's implementing the law and how it's creating capacities and building, yes, as you said, like social capabilities. So let's have the third presentation from our team. Antonia, Samur, and Karina Cabello, this joint presentation. Yeah, as you wish. Yeah, as you wish. As you wish. You can stand or sit to present. No problem. Yeah. Remember to talk close to the microphone. Only that.
Yeah. Hello. So I'm here to present the experience of this project called Strengthening Capacities and Civic Participation for Climate Resilient Communities in Chile, which is a project led by the National Center for Disaster Preparedness at Columbia Climate School in collaboration with other partners at Columbia, including the School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation and Columbia Global Center in Santiago. And it's a project funded by Columbia Global. Next slide, please. So this is a project whose foundation really is collaboration. The first thing we did as a project, or sorry, can you lower this? So the main thing we're trying to do through this project is support municipalities, so local governments, in developing and implementing their climate action plans in accordance to the law and obviously the best available data. So what we've done is we've partnered with two leading technical and academic institutions in Chile, with CR2 and the Institute for Disaster Resilience, ITREND. And then we partner with three municipal governments, San José de Maipo, Alto del Carmen, and Coquimbo. And for the project started about 15 months ago, and we've been supporting and working together with the local governments for about 10 months or about a year. And through the work that we've done with them, we identified specific technical assistance needs. And with our partners, we put together a team, a multidisciplinary team, where we basically asked the local governments what they needed. Where were the gaps in terms of capacities and planning? And so we put together this team, and then we sat down and we developed methodologies to help the municipalities address those gaps. And so through that work, we developed 8 capacity building methodologies that we then standardized and are about to publish. So I will provide a link later for you guys to sign up and then receive the guides when they're published. Through the work that we've done with the municipalities, we reached over 250 people directly through workshops, surveys, interviews, etc. We did over 20 workshops, developed over 15 sets of specific analysis and recommendations to help the municipalities develop their climate action plans. One of the 3 plans is now approved, San José de Maipo, and the 2 other plans are still in development. And we are also supporting the participation of our local leads here at COP. We have Sandra and Karina, who we're working with directly. Next slide, please. So I'm going to give you a brief project overview first. So I'm not going to go over the climate change framework law because it's been done, but I just wanted to add that Chile in 2021 also signed a new law that establishes the new National System for Disaster Risk Prevention and Response. This framework also requires municipal governments to develop risk reduction plans and emergency plans, and it's something that municipalities, some of them were doing, but not very well a lot of the times, and a lot of municipalities weren't doing at all. And so both of these frameworks, legal frameworks, added a lot of additional requirements for municipal governments. And so with our partners, it was 2023, and we were seeing that progress towards the implementation of neither of these laws was going very well. So we put together a project to basically sit down with the municipalities and identify where the gaps lie and try to develop strategies to then build those capacities and work with them to help them implement both of these frameworks. And so this project aims to provide technical assistance to municipal governments, support community participation processes. That was one of the main focus, and also promote the integration of adaptation with disaster risk reduction and other territorial development priorities and plans. and also strengthen local leadership and promote collaborations, which also we're very proud to say that we're already doing, and also promoting lessons learned and sharing those planning methodologies to contribute to other municipalities that might be in need of help still in Chile and in other places in the world. And so what we've done so far, we basically use the participants of the course developed by CR2 and the Ministry of Environment, and we shared an open application for all of the municipalities that were participating. Out of the 345 municipalities in Chile, we actually received 67 applications. We were surprised because it was very close to the deadline at that point. And then we selected 3 based on geographic diversity, climate risks, and commitment to climate action. And then along with our local leads, we started by doing an initial assessment that included a capacity assessment of the planning team, stakeholder mapping, and identifying the specific technical support priorities that each of those teams needed. And then we sat down with this multidisciplinary team from different institutions, and we developed methodologies to then implement them with the partners and the different municipalities. So we also validated those methodologies with the local partners and then implemented them. Also, we set up bi-weekly meetings with each of the planning teams. And so since then, since we started a year ago, we've been sitting down with them every 2 weeks and just walking through the process that they've been leading, the development and implementation of the plans. And then we identify ways in which we can support them, amplify what they've done, and kind of provide very specific technical support. And so we've delivered climate perception surveys, key actor interviews, community climate change workshops, which included vulnerability and risk mapping exercises, and workshops to enhance community participation skills of the municipal teams. We conducted workshops focused on funding strategies, MRV systems, the prioritization of measures within climate action plans, and workshops on the integration of disaster risk management and climate action. We also developed over 15 reports and specific analysis, making recommendations of exactly how to integrate these different areas and how to integrate the results of all of these workshops and everything into the climate action plans. We are not writing the climate action plans. We made that an important priority. We wanted to continue to let the municipalities lead, but with support of our team. Next, please. And so some of the results that we have so far. So as I mentioned, we develop all of these methodologies to address the specific needs that the municipalities identified. And we then standardize all of those methodologies and put them in a guide that we're about to publish. And so they're all basically the workshops that I mentioned, but when we divided them in 2 key areas. One is the integration of community perceptions into action plans, and then on strengthening municipal capacities to plan for climate action. Next, please. And so this is a quick overview of how the guides look. And in this QR code, if you give us your email, we'll send you the guides when these are published. And also you can follow all of the institutions. I'm sure we will be publishing them on Instagram and LinkedIn. So the idea of this guides are to support any municipal government going through a planning process like this. And we basically not only provide the methodology of how to conduct a workshop, but we also provide our PowerPoint templates, our evaluation templates. We provide surveys and interview guides, and everything that we basically produce to help the municipalities, we standardize and providing for anybody to access and download. So we're also developing a bunch of different publications focused on the role of local governments in climate action, the role of academia and local government partnerships, the lessons learned from the local actors in the implementation of the legal framework in Chile, and about the challenges of the integration of disaster risk reduction in climate action. Next. So the climate action plan of San Jose de Maipo has been approved. And so now we're in the process of supporting the implementation along with Karina, and Karina will talk a little bit more about that. And next. And so just, this is brief before I give you the microphone, Karina. So some of the insights from our experience. One, this academia local government partnership, even though it seems like obvious, it's actually been quite unique in Chile. There hasn't been too many other type collaborations like this one. And so we've been a little bit shocked by that, but at the same time, it opened our eyes to think that there needs to be more of this. There needs to be more groups trying to help municipal governments use the data and use the research that's been done and integrate it into decision-making and to policy. And so the partnership also has catalyzed a lot of other collaborations. So we've introduced our local partners to different people in the different universities and partners that are part of this project. And so that has ignited other collaborations, kind of like parallel collaborations. And so we're very happy to also know that the partnerships that created this project have also allowed to increase the network that is supporting the municipalities in doing this work. And so the last 2 points are 2 challenges. The integration of climate action across local government plans and sectors has been one of the key issues that we've observed. And so Karina will tell you a little bit more about that, and also Andrés mentioned it, but even at the local level, getting the directors of different sectors actually committed and understanding what their role is has been really hard. So it remains kind of the role of the environment units when we know climate change and the actions that need to be taken in order to address the impacts of climate change span across literally all sectors of government. And then the lack of funding obviously has been a major constraint. Municipalities are kind of torn between being ambitious and just doing what they can actually fund, which is not very much, especially small municipalities. So that's something that we hope to see evolve over time. And then there's, next please. And then lastly, obviously, we're eager to share more about the experience of this partnership in order to encourage more of this from academic institutions partnering with local governments. And then we also would love to promote the use of the existing tools and methodologies that we're developing. So anybody that's interested and wants us to come and talk to local governments and try to use them, we're obviously super eager to do that. And obviously to continuing supporting the 3 municipalities for the effective implementation. So anybody that wants to collaborate with Alto del Carmen, Coquimbo, San Jose de Maipo, we're here for it. Thank you.
No, thank you, Antonia. I know it's always difficult to make or to give a joint presentation. So of course we will give some extra minutes to Karina. I think the local perspective, it's so important. So okay. Yeah. So this is gonna be different. Antonia will translate for Karina, and yeah, no problem with that. As you wish, you can stand.
¿Ahí? Sí. Ok. Bueno, mi nombre es Karina y vengo de San José de Maipo. Yo soy la encargada de la unidad de medio ambiente de la Municipalidad de San José de Maipo. San José de Maipo es un municipio pequeño de 17.441 habitantes. No obstante, es una comuna de un territorio de 4.995 kilómetros cuadrados. Delimitamos con un país, que es Argentina, con 2 regiones y con un montón de comunas en el contrafuerte cordillerano. Somos la comuna que le da el 80% del agua a la región metropolitana, porque de ahí nace el río Maipo. Por lo tanto, somos una comuna estratégica para la región metropolitana. Sin embargo, a raíz del cambio climático, nosotros nos hemos visto enfrentados, ¿cierto?, al derretimiento de los glaciares. Hay 700 glaciares en nuestra comuna.
San José de Maipo is a municipality with about 17,000 people, but with 5,000 square kilometers in territory, so it's quite vast. And San José de Maipo is home to the Rio Maipo Basin, which feeds 80% of the metropolitan region of water. And it's been exposed, obviously, to a lot of climate hazards related to glacier retreat, drought, landslides, fires, and heat waves.
Así como, bueno, Antonia ya nombró los desastres que tiene y las vulnerabilidades que nos enfrenta la comuna. Este mandato, ¿no?, de la Ley Marco de Cambio Climático, de tener los municipios que hacer los planes de acción de cambio climático, nosotros somos 2 personas en la unidad de medio ambiente. Entonces se veía muy difícil, sin el apoyo de la comunidad que la tuvimos. Nosotros tuvimos un plan, ya lo tenemos elaborado y lo tenemos presentado, con apoyo local, con gente que trabaja en el territorio, con fundaciones que están en el territorio, con actores locales relevantes y con mucha participación. Además, nos vimos beneficiados con el proyecto de Colombia.
San José de Maipo has their plan approved, and it's been mostly developed by the Department of Environment, which is only 2 people. But they've been collaborating a lot with the communities, with civil society organizations, foundations, and volunteers that have greatly supported the development of the plan. And they've also obviously received the support of this project.
Bueno, con Colombia tenemos una hoja de ruta ya de lo que debemos seguir implementando y cómo podemos ir priorizando, monitoreando y generando las estrategias, digamos, de herramientas de planificación y priorización de las medidas y de los recursos. Ha sido muy, muy, muy importante la colaboración del proyecto de Colombia para nosotros, siendo que somos un municipio pobre, lo tenemos que decir así, con muy pocas personas, pero como les digo, e insisto, con una gran responsabilidad en el territorio. Este proceso de participación ha servido como un modelo ya para el resto del trabajo que se nos viene adelante.
The work that our team has been doing with them has been focused on developing a roadmap for the implementation, helping them prioritize what to implement first, developing monitoring and evaluation systems. And it has served as a model for the municipality in terms of a planning process.
Bueno, el plan fue construido con participación, ¿ya? Y dentro de esos, de lo que se construyó, descubrimos, se dieron soluciones basadas en la naturaleza, vimos el tema de gestión de riesgo de desastre, planificación comunitaria de emergencias. Hay muchos temas de educación para la comunidad, en temas como prevención de incendios forestales, gestión de agua, cambio climático. También tratamos el tema del turismo sostenible y el desarrollo económico y obviamente un tema que a nosotros nos convoca, que es la eficiencia hídrica y energética.
Some of the key areas addressed in the Climate Action Plan of San José de Maipo are nature-based solutions, disaster risk management, community emergency planning, education, and sustainable tourism and economic development, and water and energy efficiency.
Bueno, y por último, los desafíos mirando hacia lo que nos viene en la implementación del plan. El municipio no tiene los recursos, por lo tanto, es muy reducido tanto en capacidades humanas como en recursos financieros. Entonces, conseguir recursos para la implementación es uno de los desafíos que nosotros tenemos. Por lo tanto, uno de los aliados tiene que ser la academia para que nosotros podamos conseguir estos recursos. Y otro desafío también es integrar el trabajo, es decir que medio ambiente, como decimos nosotros, es transversal dentro de las mismas unidades municipales, que se entienda que todos tenemos que trabajar en lo mismo.
The municipality has very limited resources, and so the cost of implementing the climate action plan exceeds what the municipality actually can finance. And so partnerships become really important, like partnerships with academia. And also the need to have all of the other departments understand their role in managing climate change and environmental issues. That's also quite important for them.
Por último, no quiero dejar de decirlo, no podemos estar postulando a proyectos cuando tenemos esta urgencia climática. No podemos competir nosotros con grandes municipios. Nosotros somos una comuna estratégica para la región metropolitana, por lo tanto, se debe medir por eso. Nosotros cuando concursamos en un proyecto, nos miden por la cantidad de habitantes. Y eso no puede ser en temáticas medioambientales. Creo que eso también es un desafío para todos. No puede ser que nosotros competamos, por ejemplo, con una comuna muy grande como es la Puente Alto, que es nuestra vecina, donde hay 70 funcionarios de la unidad de medio ambiente y nosotros solo seamos 2 y los recursos sean concursables y no por la importancia que tiene el territorio. Y también hablar de territorio, ¿no? No nos podemos dividir, sino que tenemos que ver esta inmensidad y este territorio. Eso, muchas gracias.
So the municipality has to compete with other municipalities for climate funds, and they're usually prioritized by the number of inhabitants. And so San Jose Maipo, being a relatively small municipality, is at a disadvantage compared to others, even though San Jose Maipo's strategic importance for water security of the whole metropolitan region is very obvious. These issues have not really translated to priority for accessing funding. Given that also other municipalities have maybe like 70 staff in environment departments, and given that there are only 2. Thank you very much.
What amazing teamwork, no? So I'm gonna ask the other panelists to please have a seat, and we can have a small discussion. I have some questions, just that. Maybe we can get a little bit together. Yeah. Do you prefer that we have a like a conversation? I would say it's better. So actually you have covered some of my questions, but not in the same presentation. So and also this macro to micro perspective from the framework to the implementation of the law on what's happening in the local level and the allies is so interesting. So thinking about San Jose de Maipo as the micro and Chile as the macro, how can Chile align its economic policies in macro terms to micro terms with the goals of a socio-ecological transition or just transition or just a sustainable climate transition? What do you think about that? So this weekend we're having elections, and this is a main point of discussion. So how to align economic with this local development of a climate transition? Please, who want to start? Pilar? Yeah, thank you.
I think it's very interesting, the financing for municipality, because I didn't know the criteria to done the different financing. Maybe the academia can done some criteria to change the actual financing for municipalities, because it's not possible to done the financing depending of the number of inhabitants, because the climate change and the effect is there are the territories more vulnerable than the others, so it's not that's not depend of number of inhabitants. So it's possible to collaborate in this sense from the academia.
Well, I think Chile faces a challenge that many other countries are facing, that the access to funding in general is getting more challenging, and that means that you really have to develop a good case in order to access the fund, because nobody has insurance that you're going to get the funding that you need to implement. We face the same challenge as Ministry of Environment. We have to fight for our own budget every year, and the discussion that we have is that resources are getting reduced, not expand, and that's the tone of the agenda. So it's very important to try to make good cases, and I think changing that will be important. But I think the reality that we have now is that we really need to work on how we make the case that this action, like if you are benefiting 6 million people because you are giving access to 80% of the water that the region use, so you have to communicate that in the evaluation form. It's not a project of the municipality. It's a project that is happening in the municipality but benefits a million of people. So that is super important to develop the frameworks that allow to explain that you are doing a project that has bigger impact because you are benefiting more people than the people that lives directly in that community. And that's something that I think academia can help. And it's also something that we are trying to work in our GAFICOR group and in our work that we are doing now with the international projects that we have developed as Ministry of Environment. We want to help in order to gather experience, have examples of good experiences, developing tools to make this very easy to copy, so we can have a good project of water efficiency in Alto del Carmen, and maybe we can copy that and make it together and adapt it to do it in San Jose. And it's the same project, a little bit different, but we have the model, we have the tools, we have the text in order to make the case. And also that in coordination with in Chile, the Ministry of Social Development is the one that develops the methodologies to do these assessments. So we are working also with them, and they're part of GAFICOR, in order that these experiences and these methodologies that we are developing in order to include the benefits related with climate change adaptation and with climate change mitigation are reflected in this methodology. So these guidelines are standard and everyone uses the same. So when a municipality presents you a project following those guidelines, it's going to be approved. So that is the work that we are starting to do. But the challenge is that the possible solutions to climate change are multiple. And we have to start with some example. And to do that, it's super important to use the coordination spaces that we have in GAFICOR and in other capacity building training sessions that we are doing in order to put the focus in the priorities that are more important now for the municipalities that are joining. And that's the shift that we want to do now, is that start working with the municipalities that have their own climate action plan already developed, and we want to help them in order to implement that things now. So that's going to be the focus now.
Let me just make a reflection about that. I would say we are trying to find or create a standard first as a law, then as a public policy, but I think the main point I want to that you try to answer this question. The perspective of an economic policy aligned with climate policy in a local level must be not top down, but bottom up, don't you think? So to understand what are the potential of the economy and the kind of policy you can implement in a municipality like San Jose de Maipo. So what they have, for example, they have water stress now, but still they have a lot of natural resources like sun. So maybe they can or they have the potential of tourism. So actually they have a lot of ways to move and align an economic perspective with a climate action. So it would be super interesting if you can talk a little bit about this bottom-up perspective instead the top-down.
So I think it's really interesting to look at it that way, like from an economic perspective, because I think it's the same to understand like why it's community participation and local knowledge so important. Because integrating what people are already doing and what people know about their territory into the policies and the adaptation and mitigation policies that you're trying to promote and strengthen and fund ensures that there will be uptake, ensures that they actually will be implemented because it already makes sense for people. And so I think the most effective way of thinking about specifically adaptation, which I think is just like the biggest challenge for Chile right now, and like water, thinking about adaptation actions and projects as also having the potential to enhance economic activity I think it's the only way forward. We have to think about the actions that we need to implement, and we need to think about how do we turn our economic activity towards that? How do we use that to then enhance economic activity? Because otherwise it won't be implemented. If it doesn't make economic sense, it will be very hard to fund. And so listening to the communities in terms of what's important for them, what they're already doing and what they want to do more of, and trying to look at it from an economic perspective, I think it's fundamental for the sustainability of these action plans and the investments that are actually going to end up being carried out.
I would also love to understand or to hear an answer of Karina, but maybe can say it shortly in Spanish, and then you can answer also in Spanish, and maybe I can ask you if you can translate for us. Okay, so no, pero wait. Lo voy a explicar mucho más simple. El cajón del Maipo tiene un montón de recursos y tal como yo decía antes, se ha dedicado a un montón de tipos de negocios, pero todavía no tiene una perspectiva a largo plazo y una mirada que sea desde el territorio, de cuáles son los negocios del territorio, sino que siempre las inversiones vienen desde afuera. Entonces, la pregunta es, ¿qué piensas de cómo podemos alinear la política económica con la acción climática? Porque finalmente de eso se trata. Si lo puedes explicar brevemente para que Antonia pueda traducirte. Ya, bacán.
¿Puede ser? Ok. Alinear el plan de acción con una perspectiva económica. Cuando tenemos un desorden en la comuna, que creo que tú lo conoces. De partida, creo que sí hay un gran potencial en el tema del turismo y también puede ser de turismo de especialidades. Y por ahí creo que tenemos grandes oportunidades como para hacer un desarrollo económico local, potenciando nuestro patrimonio natural con el tema turístico. Creo que eso es fundamental, pero fundamental que la comuna también se defina como tal y que no sea que nos veamos para afuera, uy, el Cajón del Maipo cuida el medio ambiente, es un municipio turístico, una comuna turística, sin embargo estamos recién empezando como municipio a alinearnos con eso.
There's definitely an opportunity to make San José de Maipo a municipality that is focused and is seen not only from the inside but from the outside as a community that values its natural capital. And so looking at tourism and ways of developing the sustainable tourism industry, she sees it as a very big opportunity going forward to address not only climate action, but also the potential economic development.
Thank you. Yeah, really. So let's skip to another issue. I think it's super relevant and we haven't talked about that. So let's talk about natural hazards and adaptation. That's also a key issue in the San José de Maipo community. So given the recurring natural hazards in regions like San Jose and Maipo, so there usually happens floods or alluvions and wildfires. What are the key challenges for local governments in building resilient infrastructure, protecting communities, preserving ecosystems? How can capacity building efforts support adaptation to these risks? Who want to start? Yeah, of course. We can go to the other side. What do you think about that? Yeah? All right.
Yeah, I think in the experience of the municipalities I'm working with, I think funding is like a huge issue, especially because in the rest of the world, there's so much talk about how the funding will flow as loans. And currently, municipalities in Chile can access loans. And so they have to do with the resources that they have. And a lot of municipalities just don't have the resources to build that infrastructure unless the money comes from the regional, the central government, and then it's up to the priorities of the regional or the central government, not the priorities of the local government. So doing something about maybe allowing municipalities to access loans as a way of financing, and then maybe having some contributions from other sectors and having the private sector honestly more involved in Chile would be great.
Yeah. Well, I think there is one part of the challenge related with adaptation implementation. There is funding, but there is two kinds of funding that is challenging. One is we need to build better what we are already building, and that is not necessarily extra funding, is more how we design the projects in order to address the challenge that we have. And to explain that, I will give one example that is a bit sad, but I don't know, like I was involved in a study like in 2012 that was related to develop methodologies in order to include climate change in the design of public works. And we did the study, we designed the methodology, we did training sessions in 4 regions of the country in order to how we include in the design of ports, how we include in the design of bridges, how we include in the design of basins. And at the end, not much has happened since then. But now we developed a project with the Adaptation Fund that was designed by the Ministry of Environment. But the idea was to implement better adaptation in coastal cities. It was a project that was developed together with Ecuador. Ecuador was developing the initiative in Ciudad Esmeralda, and in Chile, we were developing the project in Antofagasta and in Mejillones. And there we study the community, we develop the plans in order to control slides of water sinking in alluviones, like you said, and we design all the infrastructure that should be done. We install systems of early warning system, and those, according to Senapred, that is the entity in charge of managing the risk of disaster, is the more advanced in Latin America. And also we built the first stage of the system to control the risk with flood related with floods. With that, the project was transferred to the Ministry of Public Works, so they built the ownership of the initiative. And with that, we have finalized the project. Is everything done? It's called Adapta Clima, and the initiative. Now the Ministry of Public Works is building the second stage of the system to control the floods using the designs that were developed by the project. And now they're trying to implement this knowledge. And according to them, this is the first project of infrastructure in Chile that includes resiliency to climate change. So this is an initiative that was funded with the Adaptation Fund. It's a grant that is successful, and it's $10 million. So it's is money, but it's not a lot of money. The Ministry of Public Works spends billions of dollars in public infrastructure every year. So the most important thing related with this is how the Ministry of Public Works is going to achieve the projects that they're making, how they develop infrastructure that includes nature-based solutions in their design, that they consider the change related to the climate, how you stop designing initiatives using the climate of the past and not thinking in climate in the future. And that could mean extra investment, but not always. Sometimes it's moving the location of the definition a little bit, and you can save money eventually. So that's an important pathway in order to build the awareness of the issue. And for that, the adaptation fund is working. Chile has funds available there. And the problem is that we need people to present initiatives and ask for the funding. And that could catalyze other investment, because even if you think that Chile got $60 million of climate grants according to our last BTR. But at the same time, we raised $40 billion in public bonds related with sustainability and environmental issues. So for Chile, it's much more likely that we can shift our behavior and access more money using the second part, this how we get the money related with the bonds, but we need the startup ignition and examples related with these initiatives related with the adaptation fund or the Green Climate Fund that can prove the idea, and after that you can really move ahead and implement at the scale that is needed and expand that to other communities.
Thank you. I see some problems and some opportunities. The first problem, I think, is the climate change policy is not necessarily connected with disaster measures, so not necessary. And I think it's not possible to depend to public finance or international finance. So it's necessary to find other solutions. For example, the coordination of local plans in the region. So that is very important to work together between the municipalities in the region, because the municipality maybe have the same problems, so they can find the common solutions. And in this sense, I think the perception and knowledge of or local knowledge is very, very important, and not always is included in the local plans, climate action plans. So congratulations for that, because we see in several cases the municipality research a consulting to develop a local plan, and they don't think it's necessary to include the local perceptions or local knowledge. So congratulations for that. It's an opportunity. It's not money, but it's important to advance in that.
Creo que para mí es muy importante el tener las comunidades preparadas. Es básico, importante, y también tiene que ver esto con educación. Desde incluso la primera infancia, de que nosotros tenemos dentro de nuestro plan mucha educación. Y también contemplamos el tema de las capacitaciones en prevención de incendios forestales, en tener también los equipos de emergencia preparados dentro de nuestras mismas unidades. Pero creo que aquí lo básico es comunidad preparada también.
The basis is prepared communities. So the focus should be on education, on teaching people about prevention, disaster prevention, but mainly focused on helping the community be prepared for the risks.
and to involve the private sector too.
Thank you again. So we're approaching to the end of our season, our session, sorry. Thank you again, Pilar, Andrés, Antonia, Karina, for sharing these insights. And thank you to everyone joining us here and online too at the COP30 in Belém. Today we have seen that building local capacities is not only technical, it's political, social, and deeply territorial. The example of San José de Maipo shows why defining a territory vocation is so important. Without that clarity, even well-designed climate policies risk being fragmented or reactive. Chile's experience teaches us that multi-level governance, collaboration with academia and community participation can transform national goals into real inclusive local action. And these lessons are valuable not just for Chile, but for Latin America and beyond. Thank you very much for your attention and enjoy the rest of the sessions here at the Science for Climate Action Pavilion. We want to take a picture before leaving, so please. And thank you, the CR2, for the invitation, by the way.